Their Fated Travels. Chapter 11. A Restless Night. Extract from the Diary of Rysandria, Day 38.
We slept in a cave. After hearing the roars of nearby beastmen herds, we decided that gaining their attention from our campfire would not be the wisest thing to do. Though the days are warmer right now, the nights are still cold. Some terrible draught washes through this forest like a curse upon it. It is said that beastmen are the true children of chaos. I can understand that. I only wish our night of so-called rest hadn't put us more ill at ease about the brass skull we carry with us.
Extract from the Diary of Dieter. I was on guard duty while the others slept. Then it happened. Good job, really, as I could feel myself drifting off too. The last thing I need is to see the future according to Moore when I'm in this place. I already know the future. Lots of killing. Perhaps some of us being killed. Me trying to save these idiots and getting myself hurt or worse into the bargain. All just to save myself. It's not fair. If I can find some way to get even with the gods. Anyway, I'm getting distracted now. As I was saying, last night the skull was suddenly out of the backpack. I woke up Tordrad, shaking him perhaps too violently as he stood up with his eyes wide open and looked every bit like he was going to tear my head off. I like this side of him. You know where you stand with the man. The commotion woke the do-gooder Rysandria. The reason I got spooked was, well, something felt wrong about the skull. Something inside it was different somehow. This time it felt like something was within it, watching me. Though the others were quickly awoken and asking what was wrong, I was unable to mouth an answer. Something was happening to me.
Maestro's Diary.
It was all he could do to point at it. It was at that moment that enough sleepy dust had cleared from my eyes for my magically attuned senses to switch on. I saw a witch-sight apparition coming from the skull itself. It wasn't magic exactly, but it was power, old power. A red, misty hue coming up from the skull. Evidently, some energy of corn, which could only mean one thing: demonic influence. This was confirmed when Dieter was suddenly no longer in control of his own actions. I could tell he was fighting it, but something was making him walk towards the skull. I saw a red trail leading from it to Dieter. I quickly took the accursed object and put it back into the backpack. The red essence trail remained, though. The tethers of it in the air were strong.
From the Diary of Tordrad.
I tell that Dieter he possessed, waiting on word to strike him down if he attack wizard. He did not.
Extract from the Diary of Tobias.
Strangely, though, the others speak of the disturbance last night. I do not remember it properly. It was as if it was just a dream, one that they all had and think is real. All I know is that it started with that death fellow.
Rysandria's Diary.
Dieter's own willpower against the forces of corruption were immense. I've never seen anything like it. It actually drove the evil back out of his body. I actually felt the shift cross a different path. It made my skin crawl and my hair stand up on end wherever it moved. This too is a sign of my own increasing power. That's when I saw it shift across to the barely awake Father Odo. His will was a lot less guarded, and his senses were dulled, where he was still between wake and sleep. Maestro tried to wake him. His shouts of warning did nothing, and the priest simply kept walking towards the skull. I was closest and no one was doing anything. I had to do something.
Tordrad's Diary.
The priestess Gowly. She has great arm on her when angry. She slap half-asleep priest hard on kisser. Very good laugh for me. I think I not make her angry ever.
Rysandria's diary.
After I helped Father Odo wake up, I quickly explained that he was being overwhelmed by a demonic force, and together we prayed to drive the thing back into its place. I do not feel it was banished back to the demonic realms, though. I feel it retreated back into the skull. After that, none of us felt like sleeping any longer, and we got going.
As they trekked northwards, heading back to the great city of the White Wolf, a sound rang out in the distance. A flock of birds flew skyward at the deep horn blowing. Faint war cries were picked up on the wind, and a second horn blew somewhere off to the other side of them. Voices that sounded like beastmen were heard off to the extreme west and east of the group's position. An ambush had been plotted. Confident in the tread of their own forest, they did not care about giving up their position now. They would enjoy the thrill of the hunt, of prey who were trying to escape. Tobias was back in his scholarly robes and pointed out,
"We'll never get back to the city in time."
Maestro answered,
"That doesn't matter. We must try to escape their net."
The group hurried north, and their decisive evasive action had bought them a little while longer. They had almost managed to press on for an hour when the first Ungor broke from the tree line to the side. More were following up behind him. Their step was far too quick for humans to escape anyway. Maestro had considered jumping onto the back of Avalanche and ordering Tordrad to ride them away, but then he realised that he'd only have to finish whatever terrible quests were ahead of him alone with the Kislevite. He quite enjoyed having the support of a whole team around him. It was other people who might get cut down instead of him. That suited the wizard perfectly. The Ungor bows were of little help to them, for the place where they attacked on either side was low, an embankment that led up to the road fairly high above it in this section of the woods. Moving on as they had at least given the group a slight positional advantage, but still they were outnumbered. Ungors engaged the group in hand-to-hand combat all around, and more were on the way. 2 full squads of Ungor raiders had ascended from the undergrowth. Tordrad had the biggest advantage, being able to ride up and down the road section, cutting down the Ungors, who scrabbled onto the road from the low embankment, their footing not quite stable yet. Dieter was busy fending off 2 at once. He knew that he had little chance of killing any with so many potential attacks to come in, so he held them off and let Ulgar play distraction while he waited for an opportunity to turn the tide of the battle somehow. Rysandria drew her gun and made the sign of the Holy Mother to her order as she opened fire with her magical pistol. Great gushes of white energy exploded out of the barrel with each shot. Each shot fired was a kill, disintegrating chaotic flesh where it connected. To her she was putting to rest poor souls unfortunate enough to be born into the bodies of beastmen. Tobias was firing his stone shots from the sling, expertly aimed and calling for his teammates to move aside when required. Dieter looked at Father Odo, crouching scared, shaking, and shouted at him, "Priest, you useless cretin! Do something to help us!" He did nothing but remain prone, with his hands over his head in case of a stray axe or stone hitting him. Dieter at that moment decided that he would make the man pay for that. He'd annoyed him too much on this trip, being useless baggage, not pulling his weight like he should have, for Dieter's liking. When all of this was over, Maestro knew that something had to be done. The group was outnumbered, and the amount of pressing attacks meant that it was all the group could do, just to parry and defend. The circle of defence was decreasing all the time, though, shrinking down. Soon they would be back to back, and then they would be overwhelmed, perhaps. Maestro, though, was confident that the abilities of the group would see them through, if he could just buy them a moment of time. He concentrated his etheric channeling and spoke the words of a sound spell, letting it lightly tumble from his lips. He based and manifested sound off of the death throes of the Minotaur they had met earlier, but increased its volume and intensity. He fancied that it perhaps sounded like one of their leaders, a Doom Ball he believed they were called. The spell's intended effect was a success. The Ungors paused for a moment in startled surprise, and this was enough to let the team push back and cut down a couple more of their number. However, the sound had also attracted a Minotaur, which had managed to pinpoint the exact position of the ambush. It joined the fray, and the group moaned in downhearted acceptance.